The Ferrari coughed once, then went silent on the shoulder of the coastal highway. And before the millionaire could curse his luck, a small voice drifted up from the gravel like a promise he didn't believe in anymore. "My dad can fix it," the little girl whispered, as if secrets could heal machines and broken men the same way. Elliot Harrow had bought silence with money his whole life, penthouse windows thick enough to hush the city, private flights that outran noise, but the sudden quiet of a dead engine felt louder than any crowd. He stepped out of the car, the red paint gleaming like a boast against the pale afternoon, and ran a hand through hair that used to be hopeful before it became carefully styled. Had been driving nowhere in particular, just away from a board meeting that smelled of betrayal and a phone call that had ended with his sister's voice breaking. The Ferrari, his shield, had failed him, and now there was a child standing barefoot in the dust, holding a paper kite with a crooked tail, studying him as if he were a puzzle missing a piece. Her name, he learned later, was Poppy Lane. She couldn't have been more than 7, with eyes too serious for her face and a calm that felt older than his money. She pointed at the engine bay like she'd done this before. "Dad fixes cars that don't want to be fixed," she said. "Sometimes people, too." Elliot laughed, sharp and brittle. He tried his phone, no signal. He looked down the road empty. The sun leaned westward, warm and unapologetic. He felt foolish in his tailored jacket, a stranger in a place where the air smelled of salt and weeds. "Thanks," he said, trying to be kind. "But Ferraris aren't stubborn?" Poppy finished. "Dad says everything is stubborn before it listens." He followed her because there was nothing else to do, and because something in the way she said listen felt like a dare. The house sat back from the road, paint faded but honest, a garage leaning into its work like a man who refused to retire. Inside, a figure rose from beneath a pickup truck, grease-streaked and smiling, as if visitors were gifts rather than interruptions. Caleb Lane wiped his hands and took Elliot's in a grip that didn't care about rings or watches. "Heard the Ferrari sulking," Caleb said. "They do that." Elliot watched as this man, plain shirt, careful eyes listened to the engine like a doctor to a heartbeat. There was no rush, no intimidation by brand or price. Caleb asked the car questions Elliot had never thought to ask, and the answers came in clicks and sighs. While they waited for the engine to cool, Poppy sat on the workbench and told Elliot about the kite she was building for a school fair that needed a better tail to fly straight. "Everything needs balance," she said, tying a knot with small, sure fingers. "Too much pull and it dives. Too little and it drifts away." When the Ferrari finally breathed again, Elliot felt an unexpected ache, not relief but regret. He paid Caleb more than the man asked, then more again, because gratitude felt like a language had forgotten how to speak. As he turned to leave, Poppy pressed the kite into his hand. "For when you forget where you're going," she said. He drove away slower than had arrived. The ache followed him into the city and into weeks that unraveled the life Head built. The board replaced him with a smiling man who spoke of synergy while selling off pieces Elliot loved. His sister's illness worsened. Nights stretched long and empty. He found the kite in his closet one morning and laughed until he didn't. On impulse, he turned the Ferrari back toward the coast. The house was quieter this time. The garage door was closed. A neighbor watering tomatoes told him Caleb had collapsed 2 days earlier, heart giving out the way tired engines sometimes do. Elliot felt the ground tilt. He stood there too long, holding a useless checkbook, wishing money were a better apology. At the funeral, the town gathered like a quilt stitched by years of shared weather. Poppy sat beside. Her mother, Maeve Lane, whose grief was fierce and gentle all at once. Elliot didn't belong, but he stayed. He listened to stories of Caleb fixing tractors at midnight, of listening more than he spoke. When it was over, Poppy found Elliot by the fence. Dad says people come back for reasons, she said, voice steady. Maybe yours is to help me finish the kite. Elliot didn't know how to be useful without buying something. He learned anyway. He stayed longer than planned, then longer than that. He learned how to hold a wrench without bruising his ego, how to hear the difference between a lie and a fear. Maeve cooked meals that filled the house with warmth instead of silence. Poppy taught him knots and patience. When the bank letter arrived, its words sharp as broken glass, Elliot recognized the sound of an engine about to quit. The garage was in debt. The house was collateral. Elliot offered money clean and quiet, but Maeve shook her head. Caleb believed in earning, she said. Help us earn. So Elliot did something Head never done with his own hands. He invested time. He helped rebuild the garage into a school weekends for kids whose bikes rattled and fathers who were gone. He brought engineers who listened like Caleb had. The town noticed. Work came. Hope followed. On the day the school fair arrived, the kite rose into a sky that didn't owe anyone anything. It flew straight. Poppy ran, laughing, and Elliot ran too, breath burning in the best way. When the string went slack, he knew why He'd been stranded that first day. My dad fixed you, Poppy said, not unkindly. Elliot nodded, tears surprising him. He had arrived with a car that wouldn't listen, and a heart that wouldn't either. He left with balance. He sold the Ferrari months later and bought a truck that could carry more than speed. Some engines don't need replacing. They need someone to whisper to them that it's okay to stop, to listen, and to begin again.